But
Yeah, you can't lose with that cute of a dog in the background. There's just no way.
You sure cannot. But we're ready to get things underway here. Let's take a look at our opening hands and kick off this match here. This is our very first game of Standard in the tournament, so thank you everyone for joining us wherever you are around the world. We hope you enjoy the next rounds of Standard to finish out our day. So let's get things underway. Temple of Deceit to kick things off. Fabled Passage from Huey, followed by a second Temple from Paulo Vitor.
Yeah, great start for both players. The one thing that's really standing out for me with William Huey Jensen's hand is 2 Elspeth Nightmare. That card is actually just unreal in this matchup. Being able to kill one of the small creatures, take a peek and take a counter spell, and then exile the graveyard to stop some Lurish shenanigans or Adadim's Awakening shenanigans. Really good card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and super good in this situation where there's no counter spells currently from Paulo. Yes, we can get some cards in the graveyard courtesy of the Thieves Guild Enforcer, but this hand is very clogged at the moment with 3 copies of Into the Story. Not something you want to find this early on.
No kidding. And you think, okay, with that many Into the Stories, I want to rush and get my opponent to get a bunch of cards in their graveyard. Paulo chooses to not even play Thieves Guild Enforcer last turn, just recognizing the possibility of William Huey Jensen being able to play Elspeth's Nightmare. Just such a heads-up play this early in the game.
Yeah, and Huey opting to go for the tap land there, not firing off Treacherous Blessing or Elspeth's Nightmare too soon, as both players are just happy to get their mana base established.
Yeah, and with 2 of them, you know, you definitely could just consider playing one of them, not getting anything with the first chapter, but getting that second chapter going and seeing what's going on. But a lot of restraint from William.
For sure. Now, with the glass casket drawn off the top there, is it time to fire off one of these Elspeth's Nightmare? Not get any value like you mentioned in terms of the first chapter, killing a creature, but just something to do.
Yeah,
play.
I think I would. Otherwise, you know, what else are you really doing this turn? You don't really want to put Yorion into your hand from the companion zone because then you just have too many cards. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you fire one off here. Maybe that incentivizes PVDDR to play a creature and think that, you know, there's no more Elspeth's Nightmare. But Huey does have another one.
Yeah, perhaps false sense of security being instilled in Paulo. But let's see if he does fire off the Thieves Guild Enforcer and get this mill plan going. He does not. Draws a Drown in the Lock off the top. But we'll need to get some cards in that graveyard for it to be effective.
Yeah, still just really cool discipline here, because if Paulo plays it now, it is not a, or right now it would be able to be killed with Elspeth's Nightmare. But if you wait until you can go Thieves Guild Enforcer and then maybe play another rogue or another 2 rogues right away, then you get it to 3 power and immediately out of range for chapter 1 of Elspeth's Nightmare.
So now Elspeth's Nightmare, going to take a look in the hand, see 3 Into the Stories, a Heartless Act, and a Drown on the Lock. What do you pick here, Corey?
God, yeah, that's so rough to take one of the 3 Into the Stories because they all kind of serve the same purpose. And once Paulo gets to the card threshold, we'll have no shortest of cards. So I think I would lean more towards Drown in the Lock, but we'll see what Huey decides to take here.
Yeah, Into the Story is still a while away from, you know, being able to cast it for 4 mana. So it goes for the Drown in the Lock just to prevent any counters from affecting Huey's game plan. And here we're going to see Yorion's Sky Nomad come down and bounce these 2 permanents on the battlefield.
This is the one reason why I love playing Elspeth's Nightmare on turn 4, because normally next chapter, you're going to lose Elspeth's Nightmare. You'll get a little value by exiling your opponent's graveyard, but now you get to restart. And all of a sudden, sure, you're not killing anything again on chapter 1, but chapter 2, you just get to take another card from the reigning world champion's hand.
Yeah, most of the time I've seen when Elspeth's Nightmare's on the battlefield, the Doom Foretold players are not too fussed about missing out on that 3rd chapter because the graveyard of the opponent is not particularly important unless there's something like a Cling to Dust or, you know, spells for Lurrus to bring back, as Heartless Act takes care of Yorion here. Oftentimes they'll sacrifice it to Doom Foretold, that sort of thing, before it's resolved. So, you know, not as important.
For sure. In some matchups, it's actually just Stone Cold does nothing, like against Gruul Adventures or something. The chapter 3 is pointless. So when you can time it out exactly like that, where you can sack it to Doom Foretold or blink it out with Yorion, that's the next level stuff right there.
Oh, for sure. As we're going to see a point of damage coming from the Thieves Guild Enforcer, a couple cards milled courtesy of the Merfolk Windrobber. An extinction event drawn off the top of the library as Elspeth's Nightmare continues to disperse into the stories that Paolo is hoarding.
Paulo, with that mill, didn't run into the train wreck situation that we don't usually see in game one, and that would be flipping over a Cling to Dust from William Huey Jensen. Huey playing two of them in the main deck, as well as like two Mystical Disputes. Huey was not too afraid, or rather, it was pretty afraid of Dimir Rogues and packed so much stuff, even in the main deck. So a nice list against Rogues here from Huey.
So Huey just thinking now what his line is. Several options available to him. What do you think is going through his mind, Corey?
So I think the decisions here, we could Extinction Event to get rid of both of those creatures now. You could Elspeth's Nightmare while you can still get some value off of it. Or you could try to do a play like Doom Foretold plus Glass Casket. I think those are the main options here. I personally like Elspeth's Nightmare here because you're not really going to have a good target if you get a couple more cards in your graveyard, because the Merfolk Wind Robber will be able to sack in response to targeting, or the Thieves Guild Enforcer will literally be too powerful to even be hit by this Chapter 1 ability. So I think this was a very strong play from Huey.
Yeah. Getting rid of these rogues in the battlefield. Glass Casket gonna nick this Merfolk Wind Robber before the grave. Has too many cards in for it to just sacrifice in response to the target, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and really, boy. Oh yeah, here comes the crab. No, we do still have the one activation here. So this is, if my math is correct on how many cards have went to the graveyard, crab plus sack Fabled Passage for an island should be able to let you cast into the story here.
I believe that's correct.
Yep. And now the big decision here from Paulo is, do I play crab, say go, wait for Chapter 2 of Elspeth's Nightmare to go off to take one of those into the stories, and then you into the story so that William Huey Jensen has not seen those 4 cards, or if you do it now to try to hit another land drop. I think those are the big decisions here from PVDDR.
Well, it looks like he's going to go for it. Let's find that land. Finds 2, as well as a Thieves Guild Enforcer and Merfolk Wind Robber. So a nice mix of cards there off that into the story.
Yep, and I like this play a lot too, because almost no matter what, Huey is going to want to take that last into the story. I can't imagine a sequence of draws that you want to take something else as the non-creature mode anyways. So a good play to make sure you hit a land drop if you draw one.
Skyclave Apparition is the draw for Huey. 2 triggers on both of these Elspeth's Nightmares. First things first, let's take a look in the hand. And take that 3rd copy of Into the Story. And there goes the library. Oh, graveyard, excuse me.
Yeah, and a correct sequence there by Huey. You know, you want to make sure you take the card first and then exile. One less card in the graveyard. Not super huge, but we don't see either of these world champions making any kind of mistakes, rarely ever.
The stuff that world champs are made of, as Doom Foretold is going to be the next play from William Huey Jensen, 2017 world champ, followed up by a Maze Mind Tome.
Yeah, 2017 world champion, and then our current reigning champion, as well as Paulo has 2 Pro Tour wins, and Huey has 1 win as well. So just top 5 Magic players right now. Both of them are on that list for sure.
Oh, for sure. And if you ever want to know how to play these decks perfectly, almost,
yeah,
then be sure to check out. Keep watching, yeah.
I want to point out their really awesome answers to the questions that we have of describing your approach to standard and describing your approach to historic. We just have Huey saying, just try to win for both of them. And then we have Paulo saying, I will try to play whichever deck is the best for both of them. Just very simple answers from 2 of the best players in the world. I love how they break it down into such a simple form when it's not simple at all.
Hey, it's clearly a winning recipe for them. So, yeah, copy their wise words there as we see Lurrus of the Dream Den come on down and start pilfering through this graveyard and bringing back the creatures to get some extra value off it. Now, I love this little loop here with Lurrus of the Dream Den and the Merfolk Wind Robber, because it's able to just continuously draw cards and come back with Lurrus every turn.
Yeah, it's so strong. Just drawing 2 cards a turn, 1 mana to draw a card is a rate you're super happy to deal with here. Now, we notice Paulo only has one way to protect Lurrus, and we do see multiple ways that Jensen can exile Lurrus if we have one more land. So I think this is a huge draw step here to be able to play. Oh, got it. Easy. Easy game.
Easy game, easy life. Skyclave Apparition, the go-to for Huey. It's going to come on down and attempt to steal Lurrus of the Dream Den, but there is a Drown in the Lock in hand here for Paulo. So that'll be dealt with. But, like you mentioned, there's the other land, and there's an extinction event just ready and waiting.
And look at this proper order here. Just recognizing that Skyclave Apparition is the worst of the 2 options because Extinction Event hits both of these creatures. It's not super huge because Paulo can just sacrifice it here, but it means that Paulo is not going to untap with a creature to get an extra mill. So once again, those small little sequencing that Huey just, nails every time.
Yep, and Doom Foretold's going to sacrifice itself now as the turn goes back. Well, we can see the Thieves Guild and force to jump in to prevent this Doom Foretold from going off.
Yeah, I think I like not doing it there just because it buys you 1 turn. William Jensen has just so many things to sacrifice here that it's not too big of a deal. You just got to get rid of that Doom Foretold and then move on.
Yeah, like when is the best time? It's always tough with Doom Foretold. It's like, all right, do I want to keep it on the board or do I want to get it off the battlefield as quick as possible? Like, what is the thinking from Paulo's side? Is it generally most of the time try and get it off the battlefield as quick as possible?
Well, basically, I've 100% been on the side of casting Doom Foretold, so all I know is it looks uncomfortable from the other side of the battlefield 100% of the time when I play that. So,
You're not wrong.
Yeah, no, but serious answer for the most part. If you have more permanents than the Doom Foretold player, then you usually want to keep playing into it. And if you have less permanents, you usually just want it to go away, take the damage of getting rid of a card, let your opponent draw 1, and then move on from it. I have seen players so many times just try to fight through it, just keep adding stuff to it, and you just run out of resources slowly but surely, and it really makes it pretty tough to keep up.
Speaking of resources, into the story being fired off in response to the Maze Mind Tome activation, so no negate available for Huey as Paulo refills his hand and finds a nice chunk of cards to keep himself going.
Yeah, just the 4th into the story, no big deal or anything.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's not too shabby, is it?
Yeah, that was probably the best possible draw for Paulo. And if you're William Huey Jensen, you don't really play around the 4th copy of anything. You just got to go with the numbers and maximize your mana there. So totally agree with Huey's decision there. It just, didn't work out perfectly for him there.
Oh, yes, but did work out for Paulo as he was able to fire off that card without any fear of a counterspell from Huey. Who's now deep in the tank thinking about what he wants to go for. Was considering Ameria's Call. But it looks like we're going to go towards the big old Sky Noodle.
Sky Noodle. Yeah, right now you can Yorion with negate backup, and with only 3 mana, you are almost assured that this is going to resolve, and it draws you so many cards. You can reset this Maze Mind Tome. Yep, I was just going to say, with the trigger on the stack, make sure it resolves. Might as well scry, get a little extra value in there, and then it comes back without counter. So a really nice play here from Huey.
Yep, and getting to draw 3 extra cards off of the Treacherous Blessing as well. So talk about Value Town, we are in it.
Yeah, that moment when you've been playing spells the entire game and now you just have to discard 2 or 3 cards, like, it feels good in this spot. I love this Esper Doom Foretold deck. It is definitely what I would play if I was good enough to make it to this tournament. That's for sure.
Oh, you're plenty good enough. We just like having you in the booth.
Nice. I feel honored. Thank you.
You're welcome. Huey Jensen won't be parting any thanks, though, with Paulo, who determines that Yorion is not long for the battlefield anymore. Bloodchief's Thirst gets rid of the big sky bird. Well, bird serpent, I should say.
Yeah, and like even though you get rid of it there, you just look at it in the big picture, and that was 5 mana for a 4/5. Reset your Maze Mind Tome, draw 4 cards. I think I would play that card in any deck I possibly could, and well, I guess I already do. So.
Oh, here we're going to see Elspeth Conquers Death. Come on down. Is it going to target the Treacherous Blessing, perhaps? I wonder. Oh, you can't target it. Never mind. So it's just on an empty battlefield just to bring back Yorion from the graveyard?
Yeah, Elspeth Conquers Death is one of those cards that almost assuredly comes out in this matchup because when you're playing against a Lurrus deck, by default, you only have one target, and it is the Lurrus, which is already gone. But it still does do some nice things where, you know, the turn where you expect a counterspell from your opponent, you play Elspeth Conquers Death or ECD, and then they don't really want to counter it, but then that next turn for chapter 2 adds, you know, mana to their counter spells then, and then you get to play whatever you want. It's a good setup card, but realistically, chapter 1 will almost never hit anything, so it usually gets sideboarded out.
All right. So a little bit of a battle here over this Ruin Crab as it gets heartlessly acted into the graveyard.
Yep, and I just got a glance of Huey's cards left in library. Looks like we still got like 29. So I think that's the major thing that would be the factor in this game because Huey is seemingly pretty far ahead here. But that is something that all of a sudden you look down and be like, oh, Huey just conceded. Why is that? It's usually because he's about to get decked. So always good to keep an eye on that aspect of the game.
Yes, you think you're safe as the Yorion deck with 20 extra cards in your library, but no. This little crab and his rogue friends do try their best to mill you out.
Yeah,
so now we're going to go
safe.
for Mario's Call.
Nobody's safe from the thieves of the deck and the Thieves Guild of Enforcers, that's for sure.
I was wondering if we're going to see Soaring Thought Thief jump out here at any point. Looks like it may well do so from Paulo's side.
And Huey making the nice play of playing the Amiria's Call early, just to protect the knight, expecting this play is possible. So not a huge big deal for Huey.
Paulo's got to be worried about life totals at this point, though. Does have a Lull Mage's Domination, so we'll be able to steal the Angel. But Huey does have Negate mana up available.
Yeah, and a nice little play here from Huey. Could have Heartless acted that Soaring Thought Thief to get extra 2 damage in, recognizing that 2 damage is not that big of a deal, and the sorcery speed of Glass Casket being more of a liability, opts to cast that second main phase on a for sure target instead of something else. So a nice play there.
It's a little bit awkward here with the tax of Elspeth Conquers Death on this Lull Mage's Domination, but either way, Huey not fighting over that Heartless Act of the first Angel, but we'll fight over this one. You don't want to give your opponent a 4/4.
Yeah, because then you just get naturally 2 for 1. You'd have to Heartless Act your own Angel, and that's not ideal moving forward here.
Of One Mind, a new addition to the deck, finds another Of One Mind and a Zagoth Triome.
Yeah, you'd think this late into a standard format that we'd be, you know, done innovating with these decks, but Paulo's like, oh, come on, do you know who I am? Of course I'm still innovating on a known deck. Really cool card to add in.
Oh, yes. Paulo's just like, hold my beverage.
Yes. Yeah, Of One Mind being able to draw 2 cards for 1 mana is, you know, like legacy level power here, so...
Yes, provided we have the human and the non-human on the battlefield. Otherwise, it's just 3 mana. That's still respectable. Oh, birdie time. Yorion Sky Nomad back on the battlefield. Goodness gracious me. Would you like to bounce some things there, Huey?
Yeah, and normally this is a no question, just, you know, hit your 3 permanents, looking like what Huey's going to do anyways, but you can tell he was thinking about it. He's got how many cards are left in his deck, always on the top of his mind here to make sure that there's no shenanigans going on.
26 cards, so he's still all right. Shouldn't die by mill unless something drastic goes wrong.
Exactly. And one thing I want to point out is we look at the Cling to Dust that's in Huey's hand and has been for quite some time. Normally in these rogues matchups, your whole game plan post-board most of the time when this card's in there is to just escape, keep escaping to maintain your graveyard level. But Huey's just recognizing my graveyard, it's going to be so far out of manage. Like there's just so many cards that there's no reason to really do it now. Because also there's no Into the Stories left in the deck at this point.
No, there's not. All the blanked permanents come back, refill the hand for Huey. Thieves Guild Enforcer is going to jump out here and prevent a discard. The loss of life and the 2/2 from being created. Mills 2 more cards. Soaring Thought Thief's going to join.
And we might be asking ourselves, why now? Why now do we try to fight over this Doom Foretold? And it's basically because of the fact that Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa would have had to discard one of these creatures anyways, and might as well play it to delay that a little bit. It didn't work out too well for Paulo here anyways, but you got to try something at this point.
Yeah, so gonna go for the Wolf of One Mind. Let's see if we find anything to help keep him alive. Doesn't look like it. Oh, well, we can kill the thing and get Soaring Thought Thief out. So Angel down. No counters from Huey. So Paulo's going to survive one more turn.
Yeah, I'm just really going through the motions here. This is looking like it's going to go game number 1 to our 2017 world champion. And this is usually the tough game to win from the Esper Doom side, because you usually don't have all of these certain hate cards. Huey was just like, yeah, I'm just going to put them into the main anyways. Why not? They're good enough in other matchups.
Rightly so. So everything coming up, Huey, in this game number 1 here. Our first round of Standard for the day. Thank you so much for joining us as we see Huey swing on in and being blocked by Soaring Thought Thief. It's going to go down to 1 life.
Yep, and that should lock it up right there.
Gonna come on down and get the Soaring Thought Thief out the way, leaving Paulo with just a Zagoth Triome. Another Doom Foretold on the battlefield, and there's nothing that Paulo can do about this one.
Such a literal meaning for that card right now. Like, Doom is foretold for Paulo for this game, for sure.
For sure, as that's gonna pick up the victory for William Huey Jensen in game number 1. When we come back after this short break, we'll have game number 2. We'll rejoin our players in sideboarding so you won't miss a minute of the action. See you soon. Welcome back to the Zendikar Rising Championship. We are in round number 4. It is standard, and we are pitting 2 world champions against each other. Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa versus William Huey Jensen. Huey just picked up the first victory with this Esper Doom Foretold deck. So, Corey, tell us what we're doing with our sideboards.
Okay, so starting with William Huey Jensen, first step, you want to get in those negates, duresses, clings. Those seem to be, and some Shark Typhoons. Those seem great. Like I was saying earlier in the game, the Elspeth Conquers Death don't really get any better. Some rogues lists go to Zerasan, but we are not seeing that from Paulo, so no reason to even consider any copies. So that's the main thing there. We took out a Treacherous Blessing, but for the most part, getting ECDs out of there, getting every card that has the keyword escape into your deck because it's so good against these rogue decks, and a couple other hand disruption spells for duress. From Paulo's side, Mystical Disputes and Negates are pretty decent against the other blue deck. Paulo just wants to turn into a bit more of a control deck, take out the crabs, take out a little bit of spot removal, and just really try to act 100% on Huey's turn and just control this game.
All right, well, let's see how game number 2 shakes out between these two players. They are ready to rock and roll. Let's take a look at the opening hands. Keep from Paulo and a keep from Huey. So both players happy with their opening 7 and are ready to get things underway. Kick things off with Paulo's Pathway and a Shark Typhoon drawn off the top here for Huey Jensen, who start things off with a Temple of Deceit.
Great top right there, getting that second untapped land. Skyclave Shade is an interesting one. Not exactly what I would expect to come into this in this matchup. I think it's 100% for the Rogues mirror matches, but still pretty effective if you don't have any exile effect like Skyclave Apparition or Glass Casket. It is a nice thing to sack to Doom Foretold as well. Like just every turn, just keep sacking it if you so choose.
Yeah, recursive threat against Doom Foretold seems pretty decent in this matchup for sure. As we're going to see a buddy for the first Skyclave Shade come on down.
Yeah, really aggressive start from Paulo here. We got Skyclave into Skyclave and then Thieves Guild Enforcer too. So, and then 2 Soaring Thought Thieves to back it up. This is just a straight creature draw. Right as I was saying, Paulo's goal is to just be controlling. So way to prove me wrong, Paulo. Appreciate that.
You know what? He probably just drew the other off of his deck.
Yeah,
so, that's more likely the case. But they are going crazy here of one mind, seeing that we have a human and a non-human. 3 cards there for, so excuse me, 2 cards there for just 1 mana. Super good value there indeed.
Yeah, Paulo really wanted a blue source there to be able to play Soaring Thought Thief as well. So we saw a little shrug from the current world champion, but still not horrible here. Just debating whether or not to play this Adadim's Awakening as the land.
Yeah, he's just using all his mana, getting Lures of the Dream Den to hand with the 3 that's remaining. Heading back over to Huey's side.
Yeah, so right now we have a great window that it's so hard for me to resist when I'm ever in this situation, and that's to cast Elspeth's Nightmare when I can get value off of it. Because one thing that Huey can line up is Elspeth's Nightmare and Doom Foretold, kind of like we were saying last game, how they go very well into each other. But not only that, if Doom Foretold were to like sack Skyclave Shade, or sack Skyclave Shade to Doom Foretold, then Paulo's put in a weird spot where he basically has to play the Shade that turn, regardless of what's in the hand. Otherwise, Elspeth Chapter 3 were to get it. But we didn't see that go down.
Yep. So Huey, just being patient. What's going through his mind here? Is he thinking about a Shark Typhoon or...
Yeah, probably thinking about cycling a Shark Typhoon for 1 or 2, depending on graveyard size, because sacking Fabled Passage would add that extra card. And right now, Huey is just about graveyard management. You see how often he's checking it here, just to make sure it doesn't fall into that trap.
So 4 cards now in the graveyard. The 5th would be the Fabled Passage. And this is one way to get this Thieves Guild Enforcer off the battlefield with a 2/2 Shark.
Yeah. Just going for a 1/1, it looks like probably to cling would be my guess.
To get rid of the Skyclave Shade?
Just to get it in your graveyard, just in case you have 6 total cards in your graveyard going into your next turn, then you get the awesome play of just escaping cling. So we'll
No.
And of course you can just cling the Skyclave Shade.
Yeah, I think that's potentially what we're going for there. Heads up from Huey. Getting rid of one of these sticky threats that keep coming back. Or is he going to hold on to it? Let's see.
Smart, gaining some life here. And now the nice thing is escaping cling. As long as Huey doesn't have like 13 cards in his graveyard, which I do not think he does, escaping cling shrinks both of those Thieves Guild Enforcers. But it is slightly risky because every rogue that Paulo plays is 4 extra cards. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So Huey might not have the luxury to escape right now and might have to do something like Doom Foretold to control the battlefield. We'll see what he chooses here.
Yeah, these rogues can certainly get out of hand, and he's certainly going for the more aggressive stance in this game too here. He found the second blue source, so Into the Story is going to come into play a little later.
Yeah, and speaking of Into the Story, that's the real cost of not escaping cling right now, is Into the Story is online, and I can't imagine Paulo is not going to take advantage of this opportunity. And Into the Story, hope to draw land number 6, and then you can always Soaring Thought Thief as well. But especially with a cling in the graveyard, you got to know that at any point that Huey feels comfortable with his life total here, cling is going to be the first thing that he does. So I would take advantage of Into the Story or one of your big spells here.
Looks like we're going to go for Lurrus of the Dream Den and bring back Merfolk Windrobber. But I'm with you, Corey. I would have been keen to get that Into the Story out, unless Paulo is just so focused on the life total here instead of cards in hand that he thinks he can power out this victory here.
And even more, can just power out enough cards in graveyard that Paulo could still cast Into the Story after a cling escape. So that had to been the mindset here from Paulo.
Now, a couple of considerations for William Huey Jensen. What are the possible lines here, Corey?
Yeah, step one, or the thing that I would want to do the most looking at this battlefield, is deal with Lurrus. Lurrus is so terrifying whenever it's actually in the battlefield that all I want to do is deal with that. Makes sense why we see Glass Casket scried to the top and probably cast on Lurrus here. But that card just, if you're letting Wind Robbers constantly come back, or even another Thieves Guild Enforcer from the graveyard, it's so hard to win those games.
Yeah, you can never really keep control of your battlefield if Lurrus is just continually bringing back these pesky little flyers.
Totally agree. And the Mystical Dispute was actually a pretty nice pickup from Huey to stop this Soaring Thought Thief if Paulo goes for it, or maybe Into the Story. So a really good draw here.
Yeah. All right,
yeah, because otherwise that would have just been lethal with the other Soaring Thought Thief.
So Into the Story still available. At the 4 mana, the reduced for the low cost of just 4 mana. You can find another Into the Story and 2 Drown in the Locks, as well as a Soaring Thought Thief.
You should be a saleswoman. That was a good pitch.
Thank you.
And wow, was that a good Into the Story? Holy.
That was an excellent Into the Story. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Paulo is going to pick up this victory. But
advantage bar is definitely in his favor.
Yeah, don't ever discount the Doom Foretold deck, though, because Yorion can do some silly things.
Absolutely. And, we still got plenty of game from Huey. We got a Shark Typhoon, as well as Heartless Act. Like, that's a play that you could kind of double up on to at least keep yourself alive. But the problem with Huey's battlefield here is, if we look at Doom Foretold and all the other permanents that are out there, it's just Glass Caskets. You don't want to be sacking those.
Elspeth's Nightmare now on the stack. There is a Drown in the Lock ×2 for Paulo. Looks like he's going to fire off one of them to prevent this enchantment from hitting the battlefield.
I like it.
How much does Huey want this Thieves Guild Enforcer dead? A lot.
I think so. Now it puts him
Maybe
in a position where Doom Foretold, where Huey doesn't have to sacrifice Doom Foretold to Doom Foretold next turn, because that's probably where we would be if this ability doesn't go off. We'll see how much Paulo recognizes that and respects it by maybe casting his only creature.
Yeah, Soaring Thought Thief down on the battlefield to prevent Doom Foretold from sacrificing itself. And it's refuel time once again with another copy of Into the Story. Let's see what we find. Agadeem's Awakening, Temple of Deceit, and three lands. The lands, actually, they're all lands. But Agadeem's Awakening is the side that we care about.
Yeah, and I think the most important land was that Clearwater Pathway. An untapped blue source there was exactly what Paulo wanted, just to have Drawn in the Lock mana to counter anything. William Huey Jensen is a little light on mana, so it's pretty unlikely that he's going to be double spelling too effectively. So one Drawn in the Law is usually going to be good enough in this situation.
All right. So we certainly know that Paulo has a graveyard full of goodies for Agadeem's Awakening to bring back.
Yep, and we see Lyra in the background laying down, not pleased with this game either, since Paulo's pulling ahead. What a cute pup.
Right. What does Paulo go for here? Looks like we're going to go for the Agadeem's Awakening. And go bring back our little roguey friends.
Yep, guessing we have the two targets. The only three converted mana cost card is under that glass casket, so at best it's going to cost 5.
Cling to Dust in response, going to make sure the Thieves Guild Enforcer doesn't make its way back onto the battlefield. Add the life total.
Yeah, and Paulo has plenty of ammunition to fight over this. We'll see if he cares about a card that essentially comes back over and over, but you know, countering this does allow you to just get another creature. And with Huey at 7, I think this is something you got to respect.
Yeah, for sure. Mills a couple more cards. There goes another Doom Foretold. Negate off the top of the library. We have a glass casket in hand for Huey that can deal with one of these threats.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out with this game is Cling to Dust, like I was saying in game 1 and in sideboarding, is so very good against rogues. But this game specifically, it was basically useless because Paulo put out such an aggressive draw that Huey just never had the time to start escaping Cling to the Dust. There's some games where it works out where they're not that aggressive and you just get to make sure you never have 8 cards in your graveyard. And then Into the Story is so under control, but that just wasn't how this game played out.
I mean, Paulo's just been in control of this matchup for several turns now, and Huey hasn't been finding his land drops. You know, ideally you'd like to use your Cling to Dust to exile a non-creature, but Paulo's just been forcing his hand, being like, all right, you got to go after my creatures here, so no land, no card draw for you.
100%. Sometimes the best defense is a strong offense, and Paulo knows that better than anyone else.
Oh, for sure. We've seen him do this several times. Where you think he's going to go into more controlling aspect, he's just like, nope, I'm going to board in all my creatures. We saw him do this at the World Championship. We're seeing him do it now. Here comes 6 points of damage in. Huey's going to go down to 1 if this shark doesn't jump in the way, and it most certainly will.
Pretty good there. That Drown in the Law is going to be able to take that down. But otherwise, that would have been a nice block on the Soaring Thought Thief and other 3/3 trades with Thieves Guild Enforcer next turn. But nice use of the removal spell.
All right, now we've got 2 answers here to 2 threats, but there is a didn't say please in Paulo's hand. So this game is going to be over very, very shortly as we see it. Counter, counter, but now no second answer for the creature on the battlefield.
We actually do, though, because we take that one and then we block Thief Guild Enforcer, and then you have Glass Casket plus Yorion. All of a sudden, if there's not a big draw, never mind.
Oh, that's a big draw.
Never mind. Another Into the Story. That's huge. If we can find a way to clear this creature off, then this is going to be game.
Do we find a way to kill this creature off? We do indeed. Drown in the lock. Move out the way, please, Skyclave Apparition. I'll take my 2/2, and I'm gonna smack you for 3.
It was really close to Huey pivoting back into that game, though. So nice work by Paulo.
Yeah, very, very close there indeed. We're gonna go to a very short commercial break, but when we come back, we will see how this matchup concludes. Game 3 between Huey and PVDDR.
I'm Melissa DeTora. I'm a member of the play design team, and my team is responsible for balancing standard and limited and making sure the format is fun and awesome for you guys to play. Felidar Retreat was designed to be a really awesome landfall card for constructed creature decks. At first, the card did not even make tokens. All the card did was landfall, put a +1/+1 counter on your creatures. But in the end, we were like, maybe this card will just be cool if it just had a modal choice. Landfall, either make a token or a counter, so this way, you know, you can still play a bunch of lands, play some fetch lands, and just get all the landfall triggers you want. So we tried that, and we really liked the way it played. So then when we were playtesting in Limited, we found that this card was just a really synergistic, easy to build around directional card. I really enjoyed working on it. It was really fun. And we're always looking for cards like this that are just like really cool to open and build draft decks around, and also that are fun and constructed. So looking forward to making more cards for you guys.
Welcome back to the Zendikar Rising Championship, friends. I'm Ailey Loney alongside Corey Baumeister, and we are seeing the deciding match shortly between Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa and William Huey Jensen. Corey, thoughts on this matchup so far?
So far, been really, really great. You know, it has been slightly runaways in each player's fashion, but both players definitely had that opportunity where they looked like they were about to turn the corner, but then there was just either a key draw from Paulo or William just had that extra removal spell to really punch through. So really close so far. Play draw doesn't really determine this matchup too much. I would say a little advantage to who's on the play, but for the most part, this should just be a great game 3.
I'm looking forward to it. 2 of the best players in Magic at the moment going at it, and we should have a very, very good game 3 in store for you, friends. So let's get things underway here with a Maria's Land down on the battlefield. Fabled Passage for Paulo Vitor, and there is Doom Foretold in hand for Huey Jensen.
Yeah, I love that you say some of the best players at the moment right now. And it's just so funny that they're also some of the best players historically. It's just 2 living legends, really.
I was actually going through the spreadsheet, just to see, get to knowing the players a little bit better, and taking a look at Paulo Vitor's earnings from Magic. The next person is like half of what he's earned. He's just he's an absolute house, the powerhouse of Magic. It's just unbelievable. Huey Jensen is no slouch, but wow.
$70,000 away from $1 million earned playing Magic the Gathering from Paulo. Just unreal.
It's amazing. Like, Paulo's career has been absolutely phenomenal, as has Huey Jensen's. As both players are getting their battlefields underway here. Thieves Guild Enforcer down on the battlefield, starts the mill off. Is looking to follow up with one of the other threats here in Soaring Thought Thief, Thieves Guild Enforcer, or Merfolk Windrobbers.
Yeah, both hands pretty strong. Both a little land light. both just have one extra land here. I think they would both just love to just top deck 2 lands in a row to really make their hands perfect. And that could be a big factor of this game. But you see Paulo just going super aggressive again here.
Oh my goodness.
It's unreal.
Would you like to get milled? Because it looks like that might be the case here, friends.
And there's the big difference between finding land drops. Paulo has a 1 mana draw 2 card. And Huey does not have that kind of synergy or that kind of really cheap, effective card draw. Just has a ton of removal. And now we'll see if Huey can answer all these threats.
Certainly going to have to try, with Heartless Act being the first port of call on one of these Thieves Guild Enforcers. Unfortunately, can't follow it up with anything, but does have negate for a potential into the story this turn.
Yeah, and here's the rough spot when you're the Doom Foretold player in these spots is you know that Into the Story is a live card. Paulo is about to play land number 4. So now for the rest of the game, you're supposed to leave up mana to counter that. Like, it's a tall order in a deck that taps out during your turn to cast very powerful spells, you know, like Doom Foretold, like Skyclave Apparition. So a rough spot here for Huey already.
Yeah, Paulo's off to a flying start here, literally and figuratively.
Nice.
Where do we go from here for Huey? What does he need to find to get back in this game?
God, so far, I mean, maybe like an extinction event is going to be important. I'd be shocked if he even left him in, though, which makes it pretty problematic. But Elspeth's Nightmare is a decent one to pick off some stuff. But yeah, overall, it's going to take some sequence of draws here from Huey to catch up here. Paulo just came out of the gate so fast.
Oh, yes. Merfolk Windorb is going to sack in response to the Skyclave Apparition.
Wow.
Finds a Thieves Guild Enforcer. Another one.
It was going to be really interesting to see if Paulo was going to go for Soaring Thought Thief there without negate backup. My inclination is I don't think he would have, but drawing that Thief Guild Enforcer was perfect because then you had negate backup. So an excellent top deck from Paulo.
You like Thieves Guild Enforcers? Well, here, have another one.
Yeah.
Could we see Huey milled out?
Before he dies of lethal damage? Maybe not, but definitely a possibility with all of these rogues, though. This draw is just unbelievable from Paulo.
Soaring Thought Thief now in the stack, gonna try and pump up these creatures. 6 damage coming through.
Yep, and Paulo recognizing the only way to deal with Soaring Thought Thief there was a like another Heartless Act. Paulo or Huey would have already cast that more than likely, so plays it with 3 mana open so it can't get disputed. Nice play there.
I don't think there's a way out of it for Huey at this point.
I don't think so.
Cling to Dust, gain 3. Up to 7, still dead.
Good.
No.
Yeah, I think Huey is thinking the same here. Like, what can I do? Just hard cast a Yorion is probably the best as a blocker. No, that's still taking 4. No, it's looks to be over.
Dire circumstances here indeed for William Huey Jensen and the Esper Doom Foretold deck, but man, Paulo just had an absolute cracker of a start.
Oh yeah.
Hit the ground running and is not letting up. Good game, says Huey Jensen. Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa is going to pick up the victory as we see the almost concession there from Huey.
Got to play it out just in case.
Got to play it out, yeah. I always say to my opponents, let me hit you. And that is exactly what Paulo Vitor did to Huey, picking up the victory there in round number 4 of the Zendikar Rising Championships. So congratulations to Paulo. Corey, any final thoughts on that matchup?
You know, just the fact that those rogues decks, you see the versatility of it from being able to transition from this small creature deck